do this. All right, so mid-sat, because again, I can't see your chats, guys. I can see a blink when you do a chat, but I can't see them. So if you're asking questions to me, I'm not going to address them. You need to auditorily ask me the questions. If you're chatting amongst yourselves, well, that's fine. So mid-sagittal, equal right and left halves. And sometimes we will refer to that as the median plane. If I'm going to separate myself into top from bottom, I'm going to cut here. And this is known as the transverse plane. And again, this does not have to be equal. Here would be a transverse plane. Here would be a transverse plane. Here, transverse plane. But if I'm separating my top from my bottom, transverse. Finally, we have the dorsal plane. Dorsal means back, and the way that I remember that is because of the dorsal fin on the fish. So this is my sassy dance move. This is the dorsal plane separating my back from my front. This is where I gave those terrible movie examples yesterday. If you've seen the 13 Ghosts movie and the door slams and the front half of them kind of creeps down and the back half of him is still stuck, what plane was that we cut him on? The dorsal plane. And then I gave you the example of the ghost ship. What a terrible movie that was, honestly. Terrible. The best part about the movie really is the first 5 or 10 minutes, when the wire just kind of goes whoosh. What plane did the wire cut them on? Transverse. Now, again, it's easy for me to be doing the planes. I'm going to use this horse. It's easy for me to use the planes on myself, but we've got to remember our animals are quadrupeds. All right, so I'm going to point out a plane. You guys will tell me what plane I have done. How about this plane right here? Nice. It's going to be dorsal, sagittal. Nice. Does that ring a bell now from yesterday? Good. I know it's probably easier when you're seeing me in person doing it. So here we had our picture of our weird kangaroo. Okay, this plane right here is the dorsal plane separating the back from the front. This plane, transverse, separating the head from the tail, and then the one sliding down the middle would be the sagittal. Now here on my puppy dog, there is one more that I do want to point out, and that's right here on the extremity. Now I know on this picture, okay, first off, what did we decide that this plane was here? The dorsal plane. Now I know this is parallel to this. Oh no, now I'm using math terms. Med term, math terms. It's too early, Miss Huff. I know that this is parallel. However, this is not a dorsal plane. When we look at the extremities, we imagine the animals like this. So now if I cut right here, what plane did I cut it on? I'll lower my arms.
I can't see what you're doing. I don't know. I don't know if you're speaking just to them, but I'm not participating because I can't see what you're doing.
This is actually the same thing I did for you guys live yesterday when we were discussing the extremities and the animal has his arms up over his head.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you knew whether we can't see what you're doing.
Okay, I'm drawing a plane on my arm. Match that to a plane that we just went over on my body. Transverse. On the extremities, even here, because even though this animal is on all fours, this is not a dorsal plane. This is a transverse plane. Does that make sense to everybody? All right, so our directional terms, these are going to be important because when you guys get into clinic and you're writing in your medical files, right, we're going to teach you how to appropriately write in medical files. Super important because the medical file is a legal document that can be called into court at any time. If it's not in the medical file, it didn't happen. You can't be like, oh, I forgot. Oh, yeah, I did that fecal. I just forgot to put it in. Nope. If it's not in that medical file, it did not happen. It is in a parallel universe. Did not happen. That's why we are such sticklers about how you fill out your files here. Because we don't just have to answer to potential court and legal document. We have the USDA government come in and look at our medical files. And if we're like, and oh my gosh, they go down some rabbit holes, let me tell you. Well, they're a government agency, right? Of course, they're going down rabbit holes, that's their job. But she'll go like, okay, I see this animal is on this medication for worms. But where is the test that told you that the animal had worms? Student forgot to put it in. Big black check mark on our evaluation. So we are very, very particular about how we do these medical files. But the other thing is you may not have the ability to verbally and visually explain to someone what you're trying to say. Let's say I have an animal with a small laceration, a small cut that we had to put stitches in, right? The animal came in on my shift. We went ahead, we anesthetized, we cleaned the wound, I placed the sutures, and yes, you as technicians can place sutures. The rule is you can't put a hole where there wasn't already a hole, but you can sure close up any holes that are there. So we're going to teach you a bunch of suture patterns. It's actually pretty great. So I've gone ahead and I placed the sutures. I need to write in the file because it was a very small laceration, just 1 or 2 sutures. The animal is a very long-haired dog, golden retriever. And that animal needs to come back in 2 weeks. And the other thing is, especially on these long-haired dogs, I'm giving you a little glimpse into your future. Did I have to shave the area? Of course I did. Okay, I can't put sutures into super hairy area. But guess what I need to do? I need to make that shaved area as small and inconspicuous as possible. So you looking at the dog, do I really want you to have to do a full body examination to remove the sutures in 2 weeks? Because the person came in on your shift and not my shift? No. That makes us look unprofessional. Where you're like, hey, can you show me where this dog was hurt? Don't you have the medical file right in front of you? I need to be able to use these directional terms and explain to you precisely where you're looking. So that's where these are going to be very, very important. And these are the directional terms that we went over yesterday. So most of the terms have opposites. There are 2 terms meaning opposite of each other. Think left and right. That's the other thing. You guys are looking at me, okay? And these guys did this yesterday. But you guys are looking at me, we need to remember this is not a mirror image. This is my left hand. You show me now your left hand. So this is not a mirror image. This is a handshake. So when you mentally take that vision of the animal and start manipulating it in your mind, you need to know if the animal is looking at you, that is in fact a handshake. So we have left and right. Cranial. Cranial means your head. So if I am moving in the direction of the head, that is moving cranial. On the face, it means This direction towards the nose is rostral. A term for your nose is rostrum. So if I'm moving towards the nose, so for example, my eyes are rostral to my ears. They're in this direction in relation to my ears. Caudal, medical term, I think you may have done this one already. Caudate, to have a tail. Caud means tail. So if I'm moving in this direction, that is the caudal. Cranial, rostral, caudal. Dorsal, we just talked about, is moving towards the back. So if I tell you, I need you to place this animal in dorsal recumbency. Recumbency is a fancy word for saying to lay down. So if I say put this animal in dorsal recumbency, so we can do a cystocentesis. Well, med term, guys, pew pew, coming at ya. First off, what procedure am I performing if I'm doing a cystocentesis? So cysto, someone said it, bladder. What is the suffix centesis? To puncture and remove fluid. So I've asked you to put this animal in dorsal recumbency. How are you laying this animal? Laying it on its back. Ventral is the front. The way that I remember that is, especially easy right now, to ventilate. Ventilate means to inflate your lungs, which are in the front. Medial. Medial means middle. So if I have something moving towards the midline, that is moving medially. Lateral means towards the sides. So now I'm going to ask you to put this animal in right lateral recumbency. How do you lay the animal down? You're going to lay him down on his right side. If I ask you right lateral, right side goes down. If I ask you left lateral, left side goes down. And this is important in some of our procedures. For example, if I am doing an abdominocentesis, what am I doing? I'm removing fluid from the abdomen. I need the animal in left lateral recumbency. Why? Because I got a large organ right here called the spleen. And the spleen is a very blood-filled organ. It is like a sponge filled with blood. And if I'm putting my needle into the abdomen, I don't want to accidentally nick the spleen. So if I know that the spleen, and this is why you're in anatomy, because you need to know that the spleen is located on the left side. So we're going to put the animal in left lateral recumbency so that we don't have an option of accidentally nicking that spleen. So that's an example of why we would use one lateral recumbency over the other. Deep. Okay, this one's hard for me to mime. You kind of probably saw it a little bit yesterday. So deep, for those of you that were in our investigation last night, by the way, great job. We did solve the first box of evidence. We discovered that it was indeed a murder. What? It was not a bear attack. And his injuries, the fatal injuries, were a 5-inch deep cut. So it went 5 inches into your body. That's a mental example of a deep injury. Superficial means just that, just on the skin. So if you look, everybody in here probably has a little scab, a little cut, something. Look, I have. Oh look, I got a little bug bite right there. That's superficial, meaning that it doesn't go through all of the connective tissue the fat layer down into the muscle. If it's just on the top, on the surface, that's superficial. It's kind of like the definition of a superficial person. There's nothing below the surface. Proximal and distal. Now, I spent a little bit of time on these yesterday. These are going to be in reference to your extremities or your limbs. Now, I am a tree, and I'm swaying gently in the wind. These are my branches. This is my trunk. This is my stability right here. I'm going to draw. And I know you in TV land can't see this, but I'm drawing the arrow on my arm that I did for you yesterday. These are wonderful, by the way. These are just dry erase markers, and they wash right off. So I recommend them highly. You can pick them up pretty cheap at the dollar store. Draw all over yourself. Draw on your spouse, draw on your significant other, draw on your dog. This is how we identify structures on the extremities. If a structure is moving in the direction towards my trunk, it is proximal. If it is moving away from my trunk, it's putting distance, it's distal. This is how we identify structures. So let's practice this for a second. I'm going to hold my arm out here. Where is my wrist in relation to my elbow? Distal. Good. Where is my shoulder in relation to my wrist? Nice. All right. Where is my hip in relation to my knee?
Proximal.
Oh, yep, same thing on the legs, moving towards the trunk. Where are my toes in relation to my ankle?
Distal.
Very nice. This is the type of question I'm going to be asking you on your test. I'm going to be asking you, where is a dog's elbow in relation to its wrist?
Proximal.
And it would be proximal. Now, this is very important. When we start doing extremity identification, when you, for example, start placing IVC. Does anyone have any idea what an IVC might be? Nice, an intravenous catheter. So I want to make sure that where I'm placing this catheter, I'm going as distal as I can, because I can always move the catheter proximal. I can never move it distal from my initial injection port. Because if I try and set the catheter here and I blow the vein, well, it's certainly, now this is a no-go. This is a no-flow area. If I do the catheter down here now, do you see how it's going, hitting that no-flow area? So I want to set that catheter as distal as I can, because if I blow it down here, I can always set it more proximal. If I start doing radiographs, which we're going to teach you guys how to do, and I see a hairline fracture, I need to be able to tell the doctor that it is in the distal 1/3 of the radius ulna. It tells him exactly, this is my radius and ulna right here in my lower forearm. If it is the distal 1/3, tell me where, show me where the fracture is. Yeah, it's going to be distal, so closer to the carpus or the wrist. So it's super duper important that you know the difference between proximal and distal.
I had a question about catheters. So before I had a surgery, and the only time I've ever heard catheter in human medicine is bladder, like going up into your bladder. And they have commercials about like old people needing catheter replacement. Here, catheter just needs a small tube going into.
So catheter, by definition, really is just any kind of small tube where we can take stuff out or put stuff in. So you're thinking of, and they have distinct names like a urinary catheter, which is a thin tube that goes into the urethra and helps with bladder flow. Catheter IV or intravenous, that is telling you catheter meaning a tube to go in to pull stuff out, put stuff in. Intravenous means the location. So when you get that IV in your hand or in your arm, they hook you up to the fluids. You now have a small tube putting stuff in. So this would be an IV catheter, intravenous catheter.
Okay, because I don't know, out in the real world, we only say IV, and then whenever we say catheter, it almost exclusively means for the bladder. So that's something I learned
Yes.
here.
So the thing is about veterinary medicine is we do as many shortcuts as we possibly can. I'm teaching you best medicine, that the accurate definitions. I say to you in clinic, hey, I need you to go place an IV on that dog. You don't need to ask me what I'm asking you to do. You're absolutely right. IV is synonymous with putting a small cannula into a blood vessel. But that is actually, by definition, a catheter. So sometimes, and the reason why we're teaching you kind of both, sometimes I would say to you, we need to place an IVC. And you would be like, what? What does C stand for? IVC is IV catheter. All right, plantar and palmar. So these are the palms of your hands. I don't know if you've ever wondered why is it called the palm of your hand. It's because this is the palmar surface. The front leg of the animal, the front foot, the bottom of the front foot is the palmar. The bottom of the back foot is the plantar. You've probably heard of like plantar warts. These are warts on the bottoms of your feet. Plantar fasciitis. Fascia is a connective tissue. Plantar fasciitis, well, what is itis? Inflammation. So the inflammation of the connective tissue at the bottoms of your feet. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to do some interpretive dance. Don't look so shocked. You knew this was coming. All right, so I am going to perform it for you once. I need to turn my computer so I can actually see this.
Miss Huff, Estelle is saying that her Wi-Fi isn't working, so her camera's not on in the chat.
Who?
Estelle.
Oh, okay. So Itzel is here.
Yes.
Good, thank you. All right, so I'm going to perform for you the directional terms. So this is how we form the pathway, guys. There's going to be a ridiculous number of pathways that we're about to put into your brains. See one, do one, teach one. All right, so gotta get loose. Oof, my shoulders are sore today. All right. We're going to be graceful and we're going to be methodical. Left, right, cranial, rostral, caudal, dorsal, ventral, medial, lateral, deep, superficial, proximal, distal, palmar, plantar. Thank you. Up. You guys are welcome to follow along at home if you would like to play along. All right, so you guys.
I'm good, thank you.
He's like watching TV.
All right, so we are gonna do this together. Are you ready? Okay, first, what do? Gotta get loose. Get loose. All right. Left. Good. I know some of you almost did your right. I saw that. We're not a mirror image. Try that one more time. Left. Right. Cranial. Rostral. Caudal. Dorsal. Ventral. Medial. Lateral. Deep. Superficial. Proximal. Distal. Palmar. Give me some spirit fingers. Plantar. All right, now I'm going to sit down. I'm going to call them out. I'll do it in order. You guys are going to do it. Are you ready? Left. Right. Cranial. Rostral. Caudal. Medial. Oh, I did it wrong. I'm sorry. Caudal. So we'll go do caudal again. Dorsal. Ventral. Medial. Lateral. Deep. Superficial. Proximal. Distal. Palmar. Plantar. Again, I'm going to speed it up a little bit, but I'll still go in order. Left, right, cranial, rostral, caudal, dorsal, ventral, medial, lateral, deep, superficial, proximal, distal, palmar, plantar. Speeding it up, still going in order. Left, right, cranial, rostral, caudal, dorsal, ventral, medial, lateral, deep, superficial, proximal, distal, palmar, plantar. I'm going out of order now. You got this? You got this. I'll go out of order slow. All right. Cranial. Left. Dorsal. Medial. Good. Proximal. Deep. Ventral. Rostral. Cranial. Palmar. Distal. Cranial. Dorsal. Lateral. Medial. Ventral. Good. Plantar. Superficial. Caudal. Dorsal. Rostral. Cranial. Right. Dorsal. Distal. Superficial. Deep. Caudal. Lateral. Medial. Cranial. Ventral. Dorsal. Palmar. Right. I'm going to go a little bit faster. Are you ready? All right. Ventral. Dorsal. Rostral. Cranial. Right. Lateral. Medial. There you go. Palmar. Left. caudal, ventral, cranial, rostral, right, palmar, dorsal, superficial, distal. I like it. All right, let's see how fast you can go. Cranial, rostral, lateral, medial, dorsal. See, now I'm just making the dance for my own amusement. You guys are all. It was just interpretive dance. I'm a cheeky monkey. It was just for me. That one was just for me. All right. Any comments, questions, concerns? You guys can sit down. Wonderful job. That was really funny. That was fun for me. That was good for me. What is what? Superficial is just on the surface. So if I get a paper cut and it's not gone through all of the layers of skin, that's superficial. If I take a knife and I plunge it into somebody, that would be an example of deep. So if it goes beyond the skin into the muscular layer, that would be deep. All right, so my suggestion to you guys, we just did a ton of pathways, okay? Take the tools that I gave you last week. We just did visual pathways, auditory pathways, tactile pathways, movement, and we had a little bit of laughter, which releases endorphins, helps to open the curtain. Get this slide and practice the dance, because that is the best way for you guys to get it. You even saw it in just a few minutes that we were doing it here. The first time you did it, it was very slow, it was very stilted, you really had to think about it. By the last, okay, not the super last one, because that was just fun for me. But the last one where we weren't going ridiculously fast, you guys were getting to a point where you weren't really having to think about it. You were already getting that muscle memory, associating a movement with a word. So that's what we're looking for. Comments, questions, concerns? Everybody's okay? Excellent. So these are
I have a
just,
question.
yes.
I just want to go back and touch on, you said you had made a comment about the spleen earlier and laying the animal on the left side where the spleen is located, but how do you
Right.
prevent from puncturing it?
So if you have the animal on the left side, it means you're punctured. So the animal is laying on its left side. Let me get this horse. No. Damn hole straight. All right, so let me move up here. Here is a horse, right? He's out of the beam. Here is a horse. His spleen is running down. Now, obviously, am I laying a horse in left lateral recumbency? No, pretend it's a dog. His spleen is running right down here on the left side of his abdomen. But I need to put a needle into the abdomen to suck out the fluid. If I place him in left lateral recumbency, he's now laying on the side that the spleen is, so I don't accidentally poke him in that side into the spleen. Does that make sense?
Yes, I saying it makes a whole lot of sense. Okay, thank you.
Of course. All right, so these, for those of you that are more, you need more analytical, you need to see it written out. These are just the literal definitions. Left and right refers to the animal's left and right, not yours. Yeah, I don't care which one is your left and right. If this animal has a laceration on its left thoracic cavity, I need to know it's on the animal's left. Cranial and caudal is going to refer to the head and the tail. Rostral is referring to on the head only, movement towards the nose. Dorsal and ventral. Now here it's, I want to address this. It says up and down. Because remember, our animals are quadrupeds. So when we are referring to dorsal and ventral, you now see how dorsal would be up, ventral would be down. On us, because we're bipeds, dorsal is back, ventral is front. That's fine for us to get used to the direction, but we need to do all of this in quadrupeds. So up, down. Medial means movement towards the middle. So if I am going to perform a stay or an ovarial hysterectomy, I do a mid-sagittal midline incision, which is medial right down the middle. Lateral refers to the sides. So this is my lateral. This is my medial. Deep and superficial, this is either entering the body or just on the surface. And then proximal and distal. Proximal is moving towards the trunk. Distal is moving away from the trunk. Any comments, questions, concerns about any of these definitions? Palmar is the walking surface of the front legs, right? Just distal to my carpus. Plantar is the walking surface of the back legs, just distal to my tarsus. The other thing to note, just a tech note, we are bipeds, and we are also, I don't know if you guys have gotten into this yet, we are known as plantigrade. Well, we now know what plantar means, the walking surface of our back legs. Plantar refers to so plantar, you look at your foot, I am walking on the full plantar surface of my foot. Animals are digigrade, meaning they walk on their digits. If we look at this foot, right, and actually turn around so I'm in the same. So if you look at this foot, you see this pad right here? That is the equivalent of my heel. So if you take and mentally put that foot where that pad is on the ground, now that animal's foot is in the same anatomical position as mine right now. But if I take my foot and raise it up like this, now you can see the anatomical position of the animal's foot in relation to mine.
Can you circle it on the screen so we can see which part you're talking about being the heel?
I'm actually just demonstrating on my own foot. So what I am referring to is this right here is the equivalent of my heel. So if I bring this down, you can now see this foot with the heel is a human foot. The difference is that our animals are digigrade, meaning they walk on their toes. So this is what, if you point, take your foot and lift it like you're wearing high heels. You see how your heel is lifted off the ground? That's the position of this foot right now. And
I guess that makes sense with the dew claw being so high too.
Absolutely. So these guys are digigrade. So this entire back surface right here is the plantar surface. Does that make sense? Yes.
What's weird is I have a little cousin who, on his mom's side of the family, for some reason, some of the kids came out where they didn't want to walk on flat feet. They only wanted to walk on their tippy toes.
Yep.
And he had to have years and years of therapy to break that habit. He had to go to braces. And they found out that nothing anatomically was wrong with him. They don't
Really?
know why that happens with him.
That's crazy because sometimes it is got something to do with the connective tissue, the ligaments. There's something anatomically wrong with the ligaments that makes it uncomfortable.
Yeah, they thought that they would be hardening or something, but they found out that they weren't. They don't know why.
Yeah, a lot of babies will start out walking on their toes. And then because of our center of gravity, our foot drops. Because they are quadrupeds and their center of gravity is much lower than ours, their foot doesn't drop. Now, there is actually a medical condition called neuropathy that causes the foot to come down and walk in a full plantar, which is not good because they're not meant to do that. So this whole thing here is the plantar surface on the back. Even though their walking surface is here, that plantar goes all the way to where the human equivalent of the heel is. So this is just a review of our planes. We did this earlier. All right, I've got a picture here. I would like you to start using some directional terms. If I am a technician and I am on call and you are at the clinic and you are trying to describe for me where is the location and the look of this injury, there's a lot of directional terms we could use. So start out, tell me one. What side of the animal is it on? It's on the right side. So, right, lateral.
Dorsal.
It is located more dorsally.
Distal from the shoulder.
Yeah, so what we would say is it's actually kind of, wow, it's a devastating wound. So it would be distal. Well, technically, that's only for extremities.
Okay.
What we could say is dorsal to the shoulder. Is that a superficial wound? That's a deep wound.
Definitely deep.
Is it located more cranially or more caudally?
Cranially.
It's a little bit more
Cranial.
cranial.
Is there a word for like the big?
We would use measurements.
Would we still call that a laceration?
This is a penetrating wound. This is what I would call laceration. Is generally when you have relatively not nearly this deep, not muscle involvement. This is a deep penetrating muscular wound.
So lacerations are more superficial.
Do what? I'm sorry?
So lacerations tend to be more superficial.
I mean, you can have deep lacerations. This particular wound, the reason why it's not classifying it as a laceration is because you can see right here that it has gone down most likely and even nicked a rib. So that is a deep penetrating wound versus a simple laceration.
And it's a little too wide to be considered a laceration, right?
It's a very wide, devastating injury. So is there a literal definition for what is a laceration? Laceration is a cut. So then we just start using our further descriptive terms to try and tell someone who's not seeing the wound what it looks like. Very jagged edges on this cut. And so the question was, what happened? This is a Google image slide that I got off of the Google. However, I can look at this animal, this still image, know absolutely nothing about this dog. I don't know this dog. I've never met this dog. I've never treated this dog. It is a still image I found on a stock Google image search.
Jumped out of the back of the truck.
That's one guess. Jumped out of the back of the truck. The reason why I don't think that's the case is that I don't got no road rash. Usually if you have jumped out of a truck, they jump out face first. We're gonna have road rash and road rash. Could
It was
be
a bear attack.
it was a bear attack. No. You think what? Could have been in a fight. However, generally, if you're gonna be having a dog in a fight, you're gonna have multiple bite punctures versus this big chunk ripped out. Oh,
And
you're getting
probably
close.
blood on the mouth, right?
These have something to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
What are those that I just circled?
It's
testes.
testes.
So I would be willing to bet cold hard cash that there was a bitch in heat within a 5-mile radius. He tried to get under the fence. He got caught up in the wire or something on the fence, a nail, and it has ripped him right open. Dollars to donuts. He even has a sheepish, boys gotta do what a boy's gotta do look on his face. All right, so if this is the front paw of a dog, tell me what the walking surface is. Palmar.
The
Back
palm.
paw of a dog. Plantar. It is. He needs his pads shaved. All right, tell me what recumbency this animal is laying in.
Dorsal recumbency.
Dorsal recumbency is laying on his back. She is laying on no penis. It's a girl. Tell me the plane that this incision was made on. Medial or mid-sagittal?
Mid.
Very nice. What are these? Nipples. Yeah, those are nipples. One little tech tip from me to you. Nipples are usually bilaterally symmetrical, meaning that if there's one on the left, there's one on the right. As we move to the caudal nipples, you can have one unpaired. And so that's important because your owners will look at that nipple, especially if it is a dark pigmented nipple, and think it's a tick. And they will try and remove it.
Oh gosh. Okay, let's see if I can say it right. On the caudal left, isn't that another nipple, like kind of more distal from the median?
Here?
Yeah.
Yep. So it's kind of wandered off.
Yeah.
It's a wandering nipple. Very nice. All right, so we are going to pick it up here on tomorrow and talk about the different cavities. And then we are done. And we will get started on chapter 2. All right, any comments, questions, concerns so far today? Go back to the what? Oh, I think I erased it.
Miss Huff, I have a question.
Yes.
Do you have an online textbook or anywhere I can get to the book questions? Because I accidentally forgot my book at the school, or do I just need to ask someone for pictures?
I do not have an online version of the book. You may just have to ask a friend for a list of the questions and the numbers, page numbers.
Okay, I got some pictures anyways. That's okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions, comments, concerns? Fabulous. Okay, you in TV land, I will see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.